Why, hello there, everybody, and welcome to the 7th episode of acclaimed, well, by some maybe, podcast Off the Rails with your regular host, me, the offrailgamer. Before we get started, I was a little bit excitable in the last episode, and I think I let it show. So I just want to put all your minds at rest and let you know that my delivery this week will be dry. And let's just clear something else up, shall we? A dry martini. It's a drink, right? So can we all agree that it's not dry, but wet, yes? If we're all in agreement, then I'll get on with the podcast intro. After all, we're not here to discuss cinema's favourite secret agent's bar tab. We're here to talk VGs, or video games if you want to get technical about it. But before we can do that, I need to give you my usual patter about socials, etc. So, let me direct your attention towards the podcast description where, if you look really hard, and maybe even squint a little bit, you'll see that I've really rather helpfully included a list of links to my Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and email. I'm not verified anywhere, which I've taken to saying so frequently, I'm thinking I should put it on a t-shirt. The only problem is that a podcast is an audio-only medium, so my wearing a t-shirt wouldn't be apparent to you, the listener, unless I tell you all about it. So I guess that's just another dream that's not getting off the ground. What else do I usually talk about in the intro? I don't know why I asked you that, as this is pre-recorded, not a live phone-in. So, if you're screaming at your Alexa device right now, let me save your breath. You can stop now, because I'm in the past, in the time before you tried contacting me backwards through the fourth dimension. That's how this works, I think. offrailgamer@gmail.com. That's the best means to write me on metaphysics, at least until I set up a Discord or a subreddit. I don't presently have enough of an online presence though, so let's stick with email for now, yes? Now, let me give you a quick rundown of what you can expect to hear this week, and then we'll jump in. First, I'll fill you in on what I've been up to in the last 2 weeks. Then we'll try and scour the internet for anything that fits the concept of gaming news. And then, I'll pick a topic to talk on for the remaining 15 minutes or so. I try to keep each episode to around the 25-minute mark, so let's pick up our feet and jog into segment 1, where I'll tell you what I've been playing recently. Last time out, I was very keen to talk about one of my favourite games, Oxenfree, and close to 2 weeks ago now, I uploaded a 3.5-hour VOD taken from my earlier Twitch stream in which I completed a full playthrough. If anyone listening sat and watched the whole thing, then 1, I thank you sincerely, and 2, I hope you enjoyed it. Oxenfree sees you, a girl named Alex, and your fellow junior high school friends take the last ferry out of Pacific coastal town Kamina to nearby Edwards Island, on which a military communications outpost was operational during the Second World War. And it is through these military comms operations that the island has ties to the sinking of the somewhat experimental nuclear submarine, the USS Kanaloa, which resulted in the tragic deaths of 97 people, including 85 service personnel. So Edwards Island, which is all but deserted, makes for the perfect location for a beach party, right? Well, I guess that depends on your point of view. The series of strange events that Alex and her friends live through will certainly make this a night that they'll never forget. At least, you'd think so. But speaking of memory, I'd say that Oxenfree is one of those games I wish I could experience for the first time again. And the last thing I want to say on this game, for now at least, is how great the soundtrack is, which really builds up the creepy. This last weekend just gone, I posted a video on PS1 game Overboard, in which you steer a little pirate ship through levels, avoiding obstacles and participating in little sea battles along the way. As a kid, I had a PlayStation demo disc that included a video demo for Overboard, This set my mind to imagining what such a game could be like, and I dreamt up a game that would be much closer in style to what Sid Meier's Pirates actually delivered. As I aged, I grew to understand what overboard gameplay would more likely be like, and then I finally got my grubby little mitts on a copy this year, and there's video evidence that I'm actually pretty terrible at it. But I wanted to play Overboard for so much of my life that I definitely feel inclined to try and get good, as the young people say. Nintendo dropped 8 new courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch 2 weeks ago, and last week I finally got around to streaming these on Twitch. Don't worry if you couldn't catch this stream live, I'll be posting the VOD on YouTube next Saturday. Not this Saturday, the one after. And as such, I'll pick this up in the next podcast in 2 weeks' time. Staying on Switch, I also jumped back into Stardew Valley with the goal of saving up $2 million. This is an existing save, and I was close already. Needless to say, I reached the financial milestone I'd set for myself, and I took that hard-earned cash to the sewer. Yeah, you heard that right. I took $2 million into the sewer, where I traded it for a golden scepter. And now, if ever I'm running low on energy, overrun by monsters in the mines, or if I've stayed out past my curfew, I can simply teleport home and get myself off to bed. And that's what I've been playing recently. No more road trips, and I'm afraid I don't actually have a Red Dead update for you this time. What I do have for you though is some gaming news, which is really convenient, as that's the next segment we're moving on to. Cue music! First up, I want to tell you about a new upcoming game release that I only learned of last week. I didn't find this on any gaming news sites, but on Amazon. I'd simply gone onto the app to check the status of some of my orders, and what should I see but a new game releasing on all platforms at the end of October. So add this to Cities Skylines 2, Spider-Man 2, and Assassin's Creed Mirage, all releasing at around the same time. Anyway, this new title, which I'm about to tell you what it is, I promise, will probably find a spot on YouTube at the tail end of the year. This new title is The Grinch Christmas Adventures. You may recall that I played a Grinch game on the channel last year. I believe that was the movie tie-in, and I was playing on the Wii. For a movie tie-in, I was surprised that it actually wasn't that bad. But that game is old news. And in this segment, I want to talk about new news. So anyway, keep an eye out for the Grinch Christmas Adventures on Switch, Xbox and PlayStation. And with that said, let's push forward. Next in gaming news is an official apology statement issued by none other than yours truly, the offrailgamer. I had thought to raise this at the top of this week's podcast, but I didn't want to kick things off with such a downer. Yes, unfortunately, I must apologise for some misinformation I spread the other week when talking about Dr. Zargle, and I quote, "I only had his book of Earthlets at home, which, on a quick aside, teaches you the best way to treat someone with sunburn. Sneak up and give them a slap on the back." Since publishing the last Off the Rails, I have come to the realisation that this was in fact a lesson taught in Dr. Zargle's Book of Earth Weather, not Dr. Zargle's Book of Earthlets. Please accept my humblest apology and sincerest condolences for anyone affected by this mistake. I will endeavour to complete more robust research in future in an effort to eliminate fake news from future broadcasts. Now I hope we can put this nightmare behind us. Insomniac Games has announced that they are working on a third AAA game alongside Spider-Man 2 and the hotly anticipated Wolverine game. The only problem is they're not telling anyone, at least at the time that I'm recording this podcast, what this third game is. If you look in the podcast description, I've linked website thegamer.com, which reported some fans are predicting a Venom game. If they're right, this could be absolute beast. However, At this stage, there's nothing to confirm that this is the case, so we'll simply have to wait patiently for an official announcement from the studio. And lastly, for gaming news, I was scouring through the IGN website for interesting stories when I saw that Monday saw the release of Off-Road Mechanics Simulator. This grabbed my attention because I really quite like the car mechanics simulator games, and until I was scripting today's podcast, this title had completely passed me by. It's unfortunate then that I currently find myself penniless, but with some hard work I might be able to save up enough coppers to buy this game down the line. I think it's only had a PC release so far, but if you follow the IGN link in the podcast description, you'll be able to fact check that. And now, if you'll allow me to be quite frank with you, I'm feeling rather all newsed out. So let's have some main content, can we? This week, I'm going to be a voice of negativity and talk about 10 games that I didn't get on with. Now, there are some genuine stinkers in this list, but there are also some that I think are objectively good games. So it's not my intention to badmouth any of the following titles, but merely to describe what barriers I personally came up against, preventing me from getting the best experience out of them. And I also want to go back to many of these games because I like the premise and game worlds, but need to give myself another chance to actually click with them. First on the list is Play It Video Poker and Blackjack, which I've talked about in Off the Rails episode 2. Now, when I played this for YouTube, I did confess that there was something strangely hypnotic about this game that kept me playing much longer than it actually deserves. Contrary to what I said about some of the games in today's list being good, but just not hitting the right spot with me, I think Play It Video Poker is objectively a stinking poo pile. Check out my video to judge it for yourself. There's no skill or challenge to this game, just blind luck as to the cards it decides to give you, and that makes for a pretty poor experience all round. Back in episode 2 I even questioned whether, as a playable experience, this even constitutes a game. Not one that I can recommend to anyone, but at least we got it out the way early doors. We can only look up from here. Though we'll not be elevating ourselves much higher with my next submission, staying on PS2 with Air Ranger Rescue Helicopter. Now this game doesn't totally stink, and is even quite good for a laugh if you're playing with friends, but it is pretty far from what I could consider to be a good game. In short, you play as a rescue helicopter pilot, and it's your job to fly the chopper to the scenes of various accidents, such as multi-car pile-ups and even sinking cruise liners. The premise sounds quite entertaining, and indeed it was for about 20 to 30 minutes or so. The big problem is that some levels require precision positioning. Try saying that 4 times fast. Hovering in gale force winds that move you out of the Goldilocks zone, which in turn causes your crewmate to winch himself back up empty-handed, all the while your all-too-short time limit runs down. You know what though? As I sit here talking about this game now, I've got a real hankering to load it up again. I think it could now pose one of those one more try challenges, like that getting over it game. Maybe, though I make no promises, but maybe one for a live stream not too far down the line, eh? Third on the list is Scorn, which, I'll be honest with you, I really don't understand. Due to its aesthetics, I had thought to include this in last year's Season of Scare, but after running around a series of empty rooms and corridors for half an hour, I couldn't see any value in uploading my capture. If anyone has a single good word for Scorn, do write in, and maybe I'll give it a second chance. But I can't think of anything positive to say about this title, meaning I'd sooner play Video Poker and Blackjack again before giving Scorn another look in. It looks okay, I guess, but being as dark as it is, supposedly for atmosphere, which I find totally lacking, you can't see a great deal anyway. Grr. Before I make the rest of the episode about this calamity, let's talk about something else, shall we? Though, if you can give me one good reason to go back to Scorn, do write in to offrailgamer@gmail.com, and if you're persuasive enough, I will give it another shot at impressing me. Star Wars Battlefront released close to the launch of the last generation of consoles, and was a leading factor in convincing me to buy an Xbox One as early in the console's lifespan as I did. When I saw this game advertised, I hoped we'd be getting something along the lines of the original titles released on the PS2 and Xbox back in the mid-2000s. What we actually got was visually beautiful and genuinely wowed me from that perspective, but gameplay consisted of a series of online minigames which really didn't feel like you were working towards any particular goal. If they'd have brought back Galactic Conquest or included any kind of playable campaign, I'd be fully sold on this title, but it didn't, so I'm not. Aesthetically, everything I could have asked for, but it just failed to deliver. Not a terrible game by any means, but I don't even think the servers are up for it anymore, which has really spelled its death. Next up is a game that I think is objectively brilliant, and watching a friend playing through some of the later stages a number of years ago, this is one that I really want to like. It's also a game that, by including it in this list, I think I could attract a lot of hate. So, with a great deal of hesitation and reluctance, I must reveal that the game I'm talking about now is none other than...
We interrupt your regular broadcasting.
Just kidding. But what I'm not kidding about is Fallout 3. There, I said it. And as I say, watching people that know what they're doing play this game makes it look fantastic. In my hands, though, well, it don't look quite so great at all. I didn't even get out of Megaton. The wasteland is too dangerous to visit without the correct gear, but all my efforts to improve my inventory resulted in half the town running me off with a hail of bullets. The world created in Fallout 3 is exquisite, and as someone who quite enjoys a good dystopian or post-apocalyptic fiction, don't get me wrong here, I certainly don't want to experience it for real, I really want to love this game, but I don't. I don't know. I just didn't find it very accessible when starting out. Possibly one to try with a walkthrough guide someday, but there's enough games I don't have to force myself to enjoy, so I don't know when, or even if, I'll ever go back to this one. I'll just stick to playing Fallout Shelter instead.
Fallout Shelter.
Growing up, I really liked the Asterix and Obelix comics. As such, although I still haven't watched the film to this day by Tao Tatus, I did get the tie-in game Asterix and Obelix Take on Caesar on the PS1, and it was nothing that I'd hoped for. Much like SWB mentioned a little earlier on, Asterix and Obelix Take on Caesar essentially features a series of mini-games. The two that I remember, which were the most fun to play, or should I say the least unenjoyable, saw you playing as Druid Gitterfix, harvesting mistletoe in the forest, or else serving wild boar to the villagers at a celebratory banquet. This isn't an awful game, but I guess I was hoping for something more along the lines of the games released back on the Sega Master System or Mega Drive, Genesis to any North Americans. Instead, I'd have to wait for the much more recent release of Asterix and Obelix Slap 'em All, which is a game I rate much more highly. I'm thinking of doing an Asterix season on YouTube one day, so we'll be able to see how all these games compare. As a young kid, I didn't really appreciate that not all video games were actually any good, and as a result, I got burned a few times, as was the case with our next entry, M&M's Shell Shocked on the PS1. Literally a game about M&M's, the confectionery. I honestly don't know what I thought I was getting when I bought this game, but I do remember the sense of disappointment I felt just half an hour or so into playing. Again, this isn't a super terrible game. It's a pretty average platformer with a few quirks. It just does nothing to rival games like Crash Bandicoot or Spyro, which it seems to want to imitate, but does so fairly poorly. I may have judged this game rather harshly when I was younger, but I can't with any sincerity say that this is a game that I'm itching to play again anytime soon. So it'll be going up on YouTube, Well, never say never. Red, yellow. Your game don't stink half so bad as some of the other titles I've talked about already today, but it was never going to be a contender for Game of the Year either. Or if it had, that would have been a very sad year for gaming. Our penultimate game on this list of games that failed to draw me in is one that I always thought would really sink its hooks into me, especially given some of the other games that I do enjoy. Honestly, I really could see myself losing significant amounts of time to Minecraft, but no, it just doesn't do anything for me, and I don't know why. I swear it's not me trying to be some kind of hipster, refusing to get sucked in because of the game's popularity. I've even tried to get into Minecraft several times, but meeting failure to do so every time I've tried. I think it's because this game is probably best experienced with friends, and I haven't got any of those. At least, I probably won't after this episode airs, with me ragging on Fallout the way I did. I will say that Minecraft does look appealing when I watch people playing together online. Maybe all I need to do is try going at it multiplayer someday. I'm not sure I know anyone that plays it though, so I guess that's just another dream that's not getting off the ground. Like the t-shirts. See what I did there? Call back to the beginning of this episode. And that's starting to feel like it was a lifetime ago now, isn't it? Well, don't worry. There's only one more game on the list, and it's another one for the PS1. Judge Dredd. And that's my 10 games I didn't... So what? Wait, you want to know what my beef is with Judge Dredd on PS1? I guess I should give this game a little time of its own, especially as I have extended the courtesy to Scorn earlier on. Judge Dredd is actually one of my favourite types of games, being an on-rail shooter with light gun peripheral capabilities, but it's difficult to tell what you should be shooting from what you shouldn't, and for that reason, I didn't get very far into it. And that's really all I have to say about it, which feels like a real shame, honestly. So, that is my list of 10 games I never got on with, and that concludes this episode. Let me know what some of your least favourite games are, and keep an eye on Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube for future live streams. Till next time, bye!